Hello, everyone. Welcome to A Little Bit Unhinged. I practiced that just to make sure I got it. Casey's here.
Hey, guys.
Mascot is here, observing. Mascot's sister is about. We're going to have to get Mascot's sister up on the website.
Yeah, the new sister.
New sister. Yeah. Very exciting there. Welcome, everybody, and thanks for listening. Today's episode, we are going to talk about television.
Whoop, whoop.
Because we haven't talked about television yet. And I'm really interested to hear the way your television viewing experiences have been as a youth compared to mine. Because as we've established, I'm 30 years older than you. So this will be really interesting to hear about. But first, I have a question for you. I'm going to say, it's going to be a little bit of a spoiler for the episode, but there are people that are probably listening to this that are aware that I am a black man. I don't know if everybody does, so just putting that out here now. Mm-hmm. And so as we talk about television, there's a television show that as a black man I have to talk about. It's just the way it works. I get a card, it tells me I have to. And so because I'm going to talk about that episode, that led me to ask you this question, because I've been thinking about it as I've been thinking about doing this episode, but where is your line? How do you feel about the separation between art and the artist? Like, as we're going to talk about The Cosby Show at some point, because it's a very pivotal kind of part of my growing up. And I was thinking about, like, could I go back and watch one now? Because I haven't watched one in a long time. And I think after the uncomfortableness, I could watch it because of the nostalgia of it.
Yeah.
But it also would be difficult.
Yeah, it's a tough question. This would have been a good one for Back in the Music episode too, because me and Karen have talked about this before, our previous guest star.
Yes.
Because a lot of the bands that we grew up listening to had a lot of scandals isn't even enough of the word. There were a lot of criminals that were involved with some of that. Sure. And it's hard to separate some of it because it taints what you had with it.
Yes. Sure.
And some of it you can still kind of overlook, and it's just kind of a gut feel for, oh, that's not that bad.
Right.
Versus like the Cosby thing.
Right. That
was pretty
bad.
Expansive. So I don't know that I could go back and watch that, because Cosby Show was one that I used to watch all the time on Nick at Night when I was a kid. Yeah. And now he's not Cliff Huxtable to me. He's a cringy old man.
Yeah. It's that one's a really hard one. It's tough because, like, especially like, it wasn't that family because, you know, the Huxtables were wealthy. Mm-hmm. But I grew up in a middle class black family in Utah. And so I lived nice. Like, I didn't have to worry about a meal. We had nice food sometimes. We went to nice places. I got games and toys and stuff. Like, it was a lot closer to my life than most other black shows were, right?
Yeah, and I think Cosby Show was one of the first ones where it had a black family that was predominantly wealthy.
Right.
I don't know if it was the first.
Sure.
But I think it was one of the ones that actually became the most famous, because a lot of other shows, like, I mean, the Jeffersons moved on up.
Sure.
But it's still, they started off.
It was a grind.
Yeah. And I think...
like Martin wasn't
Redford and Son, Sanford and Son.
Sanford and Son, yeah.
Not
struggling.
Yeah.
And Rock struggling. No, that's right. I mean, that was the perspective, is that was a lot closer to what my day-to-day life was like, more than really any other black sitcom that there was. So there's a part of me that's always like, oh man, I can go back to that and I can see my family in it, which is what makes it the most difficult, is that I can see my family in the show. Like, I can see the way my family interacted with people and some of the problems that my family had in the show reflected. So because he's there, it's really a challenge. But I also don't want him to take that from me,
Yeah.
but it is. It is
Yeah, and
what it
I
is.
think it's different for every person, because some people can kind of separate it out, because it's not like he was the only person involved with the show.
Right.
There were a lot of other people,
Yep.
and so it's a little bit unfair to everybody else.
Yes. Yep.
But it doesn't change the fact that what happened with him and all of that
Yep.
still hurts your heart.
Yep. Yep. Yeah, agreed. Like, I have watched Fat Albert since, and that was much easier for me because I don't have to watch the parts where he's on the screen, like giving morals and stuff. Like, that was a struggle for me. Like, nah, calm down. But
Yeah.
it's also a problem because in the time frame, he was doing a service to the kind of people that didn't get that kind of representation on TV. I don't want to throw it all away with the bathwater, because I feel like there's a lot of good that came out of all that, but it's just hard. It's hard to look back on stuff like that. I would rather just have not known, which is rough.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's rough. Anyway, that was put me in my thought process, because we are talking about TV shows, and especially TV shows of our youths and such. So, do you remember what your favorite TV show was as a kid? Did you have one?
I don't know what would have been my favorite. One show that I really liked watching, that I actually went back and rewatched on Disney not too long ago, was Gargoyles.
Gargoyles.
Because I remember watching it with my dad when I was a kid. I think it came on like Fridays or something. And we would always watch it. And he actually got into the show as well.
Nice.
But other than that, I mean, there are so many shows. Like Adult Swim, I watched a ton of
Adult
stuff.
Swim was
Gundam Wing.
Excellent. Yeah. The anime block on Adult Swim.
Toonami, because they had Dragon Ball Z, Sailor Moon.
Yep.
There are a lot of good shows that I really enjoyed growing up.
When I was in college, one of my favorite things to watch after class is that they had it was a 3 cartoon block. It was Samurai Pizza Cats, and then Sailor Moon, and then SWAT Cats.
Oh,
Boom,
I
boom,
love
boom.
SWAT Cats.
Best. It was the best.
Good show.
Oh, it was the best. A lot of my TV watching that I remember is cartoons. Like, I watched a whole bunch of Count Duckula and DuckTales, and a little bit of Tailspin,
Yeah.
and Darkwing Duck. Like, Disney Afternoon was a big rotation of those things. My favorite cartoon as a kid was Danger Mouse, the British Danger Mouse, not the remake that they did recently, which was terrible. I don't know why I liked British shows as a kid, British cartoons. It was just silly, but it was great. Inspector Gadget.
I never liked Inspector Gadget.
That's fair.
I don't know why. It just, every time it came on, I feel like I got secondhand embarrassment for some of the shenanigans that went on. And so
sure.
I just never could get into that show.
Yeah, I understand. Like, I never really liked the Flintstones, even though it was on all the time. I don't really like the Jetsons that much either. But when they did the Flintstones Jetsons movie, I did like that.
Oh, I don't remember the movie.
Yeah, Tiffany was a voice, and she did the theme song for it. Man, if anybody listening remembers Tiffany, I don't even remember one of Tiffany's songs, but I remember Tiffany being an important pop artist.
She did, I think We're Alone Now.
Oh,
The cover.
yeah, there it is.
Look, I'm only 22 and I know that.
Right? No, you are wise in your youngness. You mentioned Nick. Did you have Nickelodeon shows? Like, did you like the Nickelodeon like action shows like Legends of the Hidden Temple or?
Oh, yeah, I forgot about Legends.
Yeah.
I did love that show. I always wanted to be on that. And I loved, oh God, I can't remember the name of the game show where you were trying to guess like somebody's hidden talent or what they had done. So I did watch a lot of those. Not enough to really remember them now, though. Secret World of Alex Mack. I watched a lot
Alex
of that.
Mack, yes. I watched a lot of Hey Dude.
Hey Dude was fun. I liked that one. I like the intro song to that one.
I still remember it. I think I remember every word of it still.
Are You Afraid of the Dark?
Afraid of the Dark.
Still terrifies me.
Yeah. I couldn't watch it right now.
Yeah, because I saw on TikTok not too long ago, somebody was covering some of the episodes and just how terrifying the first episode was. And yeah, I couldn't watch it now. And I'm...
Goosebumps? Was Goosebumps a show or is it just a book?
It was a show.
Okay.
I did see some of those episodes, and I don't remember any specifics. I don't think that they were as scary as Are You Afraid of the Dark?
I don't think they were either. I think Are You Afraid of the Dark was... Yeah. Now, the more I think about it, the more I think they were really pushing it. Because that was a Nick show, wasn't it?
It was, yeah. Because I remember watching it and being scared. But I think it came on when it was still daylight. I don't think that they made it one of the nighttime shows, because that would have been horrible.
Yeah. All I remember ever watching on Nick at Night was like I Love Lucy or black and white shows.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
They did always do. I even said Nick at Night because Cosby Show was on Nick at Night.
Yeah.
Because, I watched I Love Lucy and our mascot's new sister's trying to hop up here. Yeah. So if you guys can hear that.
She's like, I hear talking. I need to be part of it.
And I remember being like so upset when new shows, or what I felt were like my shows, started getting added to Nick at Night, because I remember Fresh Prince showing up and I was like, no, this show is way too new.
No, it's too,
This is in my lifetime.
It has to be a show I don't remember to show up on there. Yeah, I like, I was mostly a cartoon watcher, like I was a He-Man, Transformers, G.I. Joe, Thundercats, Gummy Bears.
Oh, Gummy Bears.
Yeah, also a great theme. Maybe the third best cartoon theme of all time.
I don't know, nothing tops DuckTales for me.
DuckTales is my number 2.
Really?
Yes. Because the theme song for Mask is the number 1.
Oh, I don't remember Mask.
Oh man, we might have to watch it in between shows, because you might have. It was like 80s. I want to say 80s butt rock. That's probably not the right term, but it started with like lasery type of things. It was rocking. You gotta watch. You guys, I know a few people that listen to the podcast that agree with me on Mask's theme's greatness. DuckTales was great. Gummy Bears was great. Count Duckula's was great. Freakazoid's cartoon theme was great. Animaniacs, because they changed it up. Anytime, any opening that they changed things, like one of my favorite shows as a kid was 60s Batman. And one of my favorite things was to watch and see if Batgirl was in the episode, because she got a special little part of the opening when she was in it. It would just be like, and Batgirl, right at the end, she did have like a little flash, so she showed up on there. So I was always excited when the Batgirl episodes come on. I couldn't tell you one of them now, because the only thing I can remember, I think, is Eartha Kitt and Joker and the Riddler. But
did you watch the animated series?
Yes, the animated, like, that's another one. That's another one's on the list, is like Batman the animated series. It's that Batman the animated series and Justice League. Those are maybe my favorite cartoons of all time. Like, they're so good.
They were very well done.
So exceptional. And it's so funny because Marvel has never done a really very good job. Well, not never. The Spider-Man cartoon was pretty good. But other than that, Marvel hasn't ever done a great job with cartoons. And Justice League International, and Batman Beyond and Batman the Animated Series were all great.
Teen Titans,
great.
Yeah. Yeah, that was something, because I remember DC always dominated. And then they started, all the movies started happening and Marvel was dominating. And it just felt so awkward for me because I was always growing up with the cartoons and I was always a DC fan. And then a lot of their movies fall a little flat compared to...
Not quite there. It's really interesting though because like the animated stuff was exceptional. And I like both. I would call myself a Marvel guy if I had to. Like I grew up, my favorite thing to read was either Spider-Man or X-Men. Like that was my comics when I grew up. But the animated series, the animated series was so good. And then, you had like Batman, the original Batman movie, like Batman, Michael Keaton Batman. And so those were huge. And even going back and rewatching them, they weren't worse than, not that I'm even saying they're bad, but I'm not going to sit here and say they were great, right?
They were pretty camp.
They were camp, but they weren't worse than any of the other action stuff that was happening in a general sense. Like they weren't like down here compared to, I can't even think of anything else that was going on at the time, but whatever action movie, like, Time Cop, that's not a good example, but whatever Jean-Claude thing that was happening or whatever was happening at the time, it was at least on that level. And I don't think it hurt the brand. Like I remember being excited about like the Batman Happy Meal and like all of the stuff that surrounded the releases of those. And then Marvel really put together a 6-movie masterclass, which no one will ever be able to reproduce. I think Lord of the Rings maybe is the only other thing that reproduced it. I would say that people would say Star Wars hasn't reproduced that over that period of movies.
Yeah.
But the TV series were just so good. That was what made it so disappointing to me that the rest of it wasn't as good because the TV series was so good, so well grounded, character development, emotion. They weren't afraid to tell the stories. And so, yeah, all of the animated DC stuff was great. 60s Batman, I'll never say a bad word about 60s Batman ever. Because it was perfect in its camp. But I couldn't tell you a Marvel TV show. Like I didn't do S.H.I.E.L.D. My dad liked it. I guess it was Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
Yeah, I never watched that one. I've seen some of them, like WandaVision and...
WandaVision, yes.
That was good. And Loki was good.
Yeah, Loki.
But yeah, I'm fine without them. Like I'm getting a little burned out on all the Marvel stuff at this point.
Yeah. And it's so hard, especially for Disney, to be like, well, we got to use this stuff. Like we still have to put it out. And Fox is like, we got to put out Madam Web or whatever, which is its own topic. But
yeah, Madam Web was interesting.
Interesting. That's the right word. For Madam Web. We were talking in the car on the way back from Ludacris concert about like Madam Web and Craven movies coming out and Venom movies and how they're trying to make that Spider-Man universe without Spider-Man.
Yeah.
And it's just like, no, you're missing the boat. Like, why? And I think they just have to do it for the rights, just to keep the rights moving, but it's just not the same. But they did it so well, and that's what's crazy is like they did characters like that so well in Batman the Animated Series. Like you could have a Madam Web like character in that show, or in Batman Beyond is another show where you could have a character like that and have a really sad backstory and connect with the character.
Yeah.
And they just haven't figured out how to do it again, or they don't want to. I don't know. Maybe audiences don't want it. I don't know what people like to watch.
Yeah, I don't know, because the animated series, they did such a good job of having kind of wacky characters while also having very serious characters and episodes and undertones. And I don't know why it's so hard for them to pick that back up, because like Batman versus Superman They could have done that well.
Could have.
And I
Yep.
I didn't mind the movie, but it just could have been better.
Could have been better. And I've always said for that movie, the biggest failure they made, and this is a great tie-in, Lex Luthor from the Superman animated show, and he's perfect. He is exactly the way that Lex Luthor fits into that universe. His paranoia about Superman mixed with his brilliance and all of that, and like, you know, one episode just came online when he gives himself basically cancer from holding the kryptonite around all the time, and Superman's trying to save him because that's what Superman would do, right? And so not having the right Lex means that you've already failed, right? And their decisions, and I don't think it was an actor decision. I think it was a writing, directing decision to make him that way.
Yeah.
Just that it couldn't be good with that being so wrong.
Yeah. And I think, so I don't remember Lex in that movie, so I can't say much about him,
Sure.
but I feel like that's happened in several of the movies where they have, somebody is in a good position to be a good fit for that character, but then they're written in a way that doesn't feel right to the particular type of universe they're going for. Because there's all sorts of different versions.
Right.
There's, you know, dark, light, all these different versions of it. They could pick any of them, and it's like they try to pick bits and pieces of the popular stuff and combine it all together, and it just doesn't mesh.
It doesn't fit. Yeah. And it's like they just decided, like for Nick Fury in the Marvel thing is a good example. The Nick Fury that's in the Marvel movies isn't the Nick Fury from the comic books, but he is the correct Nick Fury.
Right.
Like 90% of the time. Like obviously they just made too many movies, so you can't get it right all the time, but the way that they portrayed him, the decisions he made fit, especially within this, I'm going to say, hyper-realistic Marvel movie universe that's like layered on top of our world. And it just feels like DC doesn't get that, hasn't figured that part out too much in a movie.
Yeah, they do a really bad job of either trying to make it too realistic, because Superman is not going to be a very realistic character.
No.
Or they go the other way, but then still keep... It just always feels disjointed.
Yeah.
I think that's why the Batman movies always have a little bit of an easier time, because they can play it off more realistically than they can a lot of the other characters.
Yep.
And Marvel has successfully been able to be like, yeah, he's the God of Thunder, but he's in our world, and they make it work. And
it always feels like DC, instead of just establishing this is the kind of character it is, and we're going to make it work in the world, it's like we're going to take this character and we're going to, like you said, take bits and pieces and try to form him in this world instead of just going, this is the character, we're going to see how he works in this world. Which is why Iron Man was the perfect way to kick it off, because Robert Downey Jr., between the acting and the writing, they said, we're going to make Tony Stark in this world, and it was perfect.
Yeah.
And they have a hard, like, and Batman is a challenge anyway, because trying to form an interesting character in a real world scenario from a guy who has the backstory and the bat thing and still being the world's greatest, trying to do all that, that's hard.
Yeah.
Right? And so either you go all in with an actor that you just say, we're going to put all the weight on that for you, like they did in the Dark Knight trilogy. And then they did the same thing with the Joker. They said, Heath Ledger, we're going to make you mold the Joker with just your great acting skills, right? But Lex, not Jesse Pinkman. No, that's Breaking Bad.
Eisenberg.
Yes, Eisenberg. He didn't get that. And I don't know how good or bad of an actor he is. I could not tell you one or two things. Is he in The Circle?
He was in Social Network.
Yes, he was in Social Network.
I don't remember if he was in Circle or not. But circling back to TV shows, CW did like a whole Arrowverse and DC characters and stuff. And I think that they did a pretty decent job. Like, I really enjoyed watching Arrow. I've watched each of them, but there's a couple that I didn't finish. I wasn't a huge fan of a couple of them, but I think that they did a very good job of making shows that have the characters, and can kind of cater to different audiences,
Yes.
which is why I like some shows. Actually, some of our mutual friends, we've kind of talked about this before, because there's a few of us, like I really liked Arrow and I like Flash. Somebody else really likes Legends of Tomorrow,
Yes.
which wasn't my favorite out of them. I thought it was a little cheesier than I would have liked, which is why I liked Arrow, because it was a little bit darker.
Right. A little rounded, more rounded.
And then we've got another friend who's very much a I don't know the right way to describe it, but she was a big fan of Supergirl.
Okay.
And so you can tell by all of our personalities, like, oh yeah, that
Yes.
makes sense. And so they did a very good job catering to different people for different aspects of those shows. So I think that DC always has had the TV side of it locked down pretty well.
And those shows, like Lois and Clark. I loved Lois and Clark. I watched a
forgot
bunch of
about
Lois and Clark.
That was such a
It
great
was
show.
fantastic. It was fantastic.
And see, that's one where they did a good job of having, he's an alien and he's fitting into, like, they made that work so much better.
It felt human
compared to what the movies have done.
Yep. And I didn't watch Smallville, but I know a lot of people that really liked it.
Yeah, I didn't watch that either. I don't know how I missed it.
Yeah, but I know a lot of people. I think in a general sense, people have a positive feeling about Smallville.
Yeah.
Just like The Flash. I think that Smallville and The Flash are similar kind of shows based on their universe, which is what they're really good at. And there's a, I don't know, this might sound unfair, but there's a CW feel to it, which I think they get.
Yeah.
You know, which makes it kind of work. It adds a little heart to it. Like the CW always felt like the kind of show where it's like, look, this is real life but dramatic. Like One Tree Hill or Dawson's Creek. This is real life but just the edges are turned up a little bit more. So
a little bit more soap opera.
Yeah, exactly. And that's perfect for those kind of shows. When you go all in on it. When you just go, we're gonna be Superman, but we're not gonna care about the Superman part. Superman is just gonna be an obstacle to his life, which is the most interesting Superman can be.
Yeah.
You know, and why it's so hard to do Superman in big budget, team movies and everything, because you lose that humanity part that's supposed to connect him to the world he tries to protect. But they have a sense of that in the TV shows more. And they have a really good sense of it in the animated shows. I think the Superman show, I don't guess it wasn't before Batman, but I remember watching it before Batman, the Superman cartoon, which has the guy from Wings, which is another show I really liked. That's the voice of Superman. I can't remember his name, and I won't remember it. I'm not even
Man,
gonna
I
try.
forgot about Wings.
Yeah, Wings. I think I watched every episode of Wings, maybe.
Because that was a spinoff of something.
Yes.
Or
What
something
was
else popular spun off of it.
Yes. So somebody showed up on the first one or the last one of something. But it was great. It was super funny. One of my favorite lines of any show.
Oh, it was a spinoff of Cheers.
Oh, okay. Just at one, because Cheers was so big that you could spin off as much stuff as you wanted.
Yeah, because Frasier was also a spinoff of that.
Yep.
I knew that it was a spinoff of something very popular.
Yeah, it was great. It was a great show. I thought it was super funny. I watched a whole bunch of it. And there's a lady. The old lady's name is Faye DeVay on it, and she was like a widower. And there's an ongoing joke that she had like a bunch of ex-soldiers that were her husbands that died mysteriously. And she said the running joke was, old soldiers don't die, they just fade to vey. And so I think of that all the time. That's just a running joke. And Monk, the guy that played Monk, is in it. Monk also. Adrian? No, Adrian Monk is his name on Monk.
Oh. That's right.
Yes. I won't even try to remember his real name.
I almost started rewatching Monk not too long ago because I never watched the whole thing, but it's on Netflix now, and I was like, oh, that was a good show that I should.
I started getting into a Monk kick because I got into a Columbo kick. because they have like the Columbo YouTube channel has like all of the big episodes and just clips and stuff. So I started getting into Columbo for whatever reason, because Columbo is one of the most interesting shows. I don't know if you could do it again, but showing the killer at the beginning and showing them kill, and then Columbo's job, you watch Columbo try to figure it out towards the end, and there still being some surprise as he kind of puts the pieces together, was brilliant. I think I took the era, because you know, there's a lot less stuff you can do with cell phones and stuff. So it was a real detective era, so you could do that. And Monk is very much that.
Yeah.
Even though I don't know that I watched a full episode of Monk, so I can't tell you if they show the killer in the beginning of Monk or not.
I'm not sure. It's been so long. Because I never saw the whole thing, but I definitely saw some reruns at one point.
I've seen it on. I've like watched them. There's a bunch of episodes I can tell you how I knew they ended, but I don't remember if they did the same thing as Columbo did. But a great show.
Did you watch Psych?
I didn't watch Psych, but I don't know why. It looked funny and fun.
That one is a fun show.
Yeah.
I like that one a lot.
Yeah, I just never. I think it started to get, those started happening at the time when I was just watching maybe less television. Also, that was probably prime wrestling era. I was a big wrestling fan. Like as a kid, we would get together in the late 90s, like when I was in sophomore, junior, senior year, and Monday night was like we went to a friend's house. And so WCW, at the time there was WWF and WCW. WCW had their show Nitro, and then they would run a replay of it later on TNT, because TNT used to not have anything on their channel. And so we would get together and we would watch the show and the replay. We'd get pizza and we'd play games. And so that was my wrestling era, so I didn't watch much more stuff out of that. But I don't know why I didn't get into it. It looked like a lot of fun.
Yeah, it was a fun show.
The other show that when Psych comes up, it makes me think of Suits.
Oh, I love Suits.
Suits looks very good.
Some of this, so I watched that not too long ago because it hit Netflix. So one thing about me, growing up, I never watched anything as it was coming out. Weekly television just was not my thing. I only ever saw reruns of stuff. There was nothing that would hold me to watching something at 7 o'clock on a Tuesday night. And I remember being a kid and being like, I just wish that I could just watch it all at will.
Yeah.
And then
now you can't.
Streaming came out, and that's when I actually got into my TV era. So I just recently watched Suits not too long ago, since it hit Netflix. Some of the seasons are a little bit of a struggle. And there's some conflicts in it that are unnecessary.
Sure.
Where it's just to build drama, which... that is what TV is, but it's also, some of it is just so staggering's not the right word, but there's just so many times where I'm just like, oh my God, are you really going to go through this? This
is
going to
too
be
manufactured and too...
it's too fake feeling. So it can be a struggle. It was too long of a series. I think if they had cut it a few seasons earlier, it would have...
Did it finish? Is it all the way done?
Oh yeah, it's been done.
Okay.
I've heard a rumor that they've signed to do another season just because it became so popular, but I don't know if that's true or just a rumor. But as far as I know, it's a complete series with like 9-10 seasons.
Okay. Are you like, I'm also a big Law and Order fan. I didn't watch it live, but I watched only the regular Law and Order. Like I don't watch any of the spinoffs, anything crazy. I'm just a Law and Order OG guy.
I watched a lot of them, but I have not watched them on streaming. Those were one of the ones that I used to watch, just the reruns on TNT
like
all
USA
the time.
and TNT. Me too. They would just have a bunch of them. You could just turn it on.
And they're kind of like Crime of the Week, so you don't have to really know the overarching story.
That's what's perfect about it. Like there are some pieces that could stretch out if you were paying a lot of attention, but you didn't have to.
Yeah.
You know, you could just be like, okay, whatever. That's the thing, and they kind of encapsulate it, and it's the story. It's some story of the day or something happening in the world at the time, and they just kind of put it up in a bow, and I thought it was great.
Yeah, and since you said that, you know, since you are the black man, I will admit that I am a white girl, so I fall into that trap of all the crime shows.
Yeah, sure.
Criminal Minds, like I meet all the stereotypes of just the white girl watching crime dramas all the fucking time.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, look. They're for somebody.
White Collar is a good one.
White Collar. Okay.
Love that show.
Yeah.
And now that I've started to talk about it, now I'm blanking on all the others besides Criminal Minds and Law and Order.
Well, when we were having this conversation, it got me down the path of like Ally McBeal. And
I almost mentioned that earlier because that was something that I remember watching with my parents. And then that was when my mom decided that she would limit my television as a kid.
That's too far. You know, it's so funny. My parents never watched anything with me but sports. Like, we did not have a sit down and watch together show at all. Mostly it's because my parents, a lot of times when I was a kid, they both worked. And so I was like a latchkey kid, so I'd come home, I'd watch TV, I'd do my homework, whatever. Then when they came home, I'd go play video games. And then they'd have the TV and listen to music and do whatever. So I didn't have, like as we were talking about this, I just realized that sports and wrestling was my social shows. Because other than that, I was watching cartoons and shows by myself for the most part. Otherwise.
Except for, I watched Gargoyles with my dad, and when I was at my dad's, we would watch TV together, me, him, and my stepmom. But at my mom's house, I was pretty much always in my room watching whatever. And I remember, my bedtime was like, I don't know, 9 o'clock or 9:30 or something, and Adult Swim would be on. So I remember turning on my TV so I could watch Gundam Wing and just going to the lowest possible volume I could.
Yes.
And having my finger on the power button so that just in case I could turn it off immediately.
It's off. Yeah. Gundam Wing. So there was one Gundam that I watched that had, I guess it was Gundam Wing the one that had the guy with the headband? I know this is going to be. He was like the ace of... They had like card themes, some of them, or maybe the main guy had a card theme.
A card theme?
This is what I remember about the Gundam that I watched. It was like a grand tournament and like two Gundams would have to face each other.
Oh, that's not Gundam Wing.
Okay, that's not Gundam Wing. I wonder what Gundam it was. I might have to look at it.
I'm sure, I'm not sure which one it is. I might know it if I saw it, because I watched several of the others, but Gundam Wing was always my favorite. It's the one that's got Hero and Catra and Troa and...
Right. Yes.
Duo and... I can see the other character's face, and now I can't remember his name. Anyway.
Yeah.
Whatever.
The Gundam that I remember watching on the show was the one where it was like Gundams from different places. So it was like, I don't think this is right, but it was like the Spanish Gundam had like a hat and he threw, it wasn't quite that narrow, but it was like themed Gundams from different areas, and they had some special ability, and then they would just fight each other in like a tournament style thing. That's the only Gundam I ever remember watching, and I feel like I let myself down because I think there's lots of good Gundam.
Oh, there's a ton of good ones. Can't remember the name of a single other one.
All right, I'm gonna look. Did you watch? Did you do any Evangelion? I guess that's a movie and not really a show. Yes.
Yeah, I watched that. I don't remember very much of it, except for the episode where, spoiler alert for anybody who hasn't seen this 30-year-old show, somebody got crushed and everybody was upset at the end of the episode because like their pod got ripped out and then they crushed the pod.
Oh, yeah.
I believe is in that show.
Yeah, that sounds right. That's the kind of show that did that stuff.
Yeah, it struck a chord with me where I was like, oh my God, this is
serious.
Horrific. But yeah, I don't remember anything else about it. I need to go back and rewatch it. I love the theme song. Going back to theme songs, though.
Man. Okay, Cartoon Network. No, it wasn't Stardust Memory. The art for these Gundams is Mobile Fighter G Gundam. That's what it was. Mobile Fighter G Gundam. That's the one that had the intergalactic tournament where...
Wasn't that the one that was more like a cel-shaded type of...
Yes.
Yeah, I remember that one.
Yeah. And, I mean, you can always get me, like, as a Dragon Ball kid, you can always get me, and they knew what they were doing, that's why they made it. But you can always get me with just like, hey, there's just a bunch of Gundams, and they're fighting in a tournament. All right, I'm in. Give it to me. Yeah. Yeah. What about like, did you do any shows like Little House on the Prairie or
So it depends on your definition of do any of those shows. Have I seen them?
Yes.
Yeah. Did I enjoy them?
No.
Not one moment of my life.
Exactly how I feel about them. Like they were on and I watched them. I don't know why, but I didn't enjoy any second of it.
I don't know why I saw them.
Yeah, I don't either. I think maybe my mom liked them. But
Well, I know that my mom
she
liked
might
them
not
for
have.
sure, but I didn't watch TV with her.
Yeah.
I think that it was always on when I was at my grandma's, maybe.
Oh, okay.
Because me and her would watch TV together. We watched a lot of her soap operas.
Okay.
So I watched a whole lot of Guiding
soap operas.
Light, Young and the
Yes.
Restless, Bold and the
Yeah.
Beautiful,
I never had to. My
As the World Turns.
Oh.
We had hours every day that we would watch those.
yeah, that would have been the way I would have liked to watch them if I was going to. Is just in my grandmother watched it. My grandmother only had basic TV, and she thought that TV was a waste of time. But she also, whenever I went to visit her, she worked. She worked during the day, so she'd come home, we'd hang out for a little bit. She'd usually give me money to go to the grocery store, whatever. And then she would go to bed, and I would watch PBS. So I watched Are You Being Served? I watched like British comedies. That's where I watched my first Monty Python. I watched Are You Being Served? I watched whatever random British stuff they brought over late night PBS because that was the only thing that was on to watch because it was like news or infomercials.
Wasn't it just a few minutes ago that you were saying you don't know why you like British stuff?
I get that. You know what? Touche. That's
Full
it.
circle, right?
That's
here.
it. We did it. We wrapped it right back around. All right. Well, I don't. Is there any other shows that deserve a mention? I'm trying to think if there's anything else that. Okay. I have one more show that deserves a mention. It only has 6 episodes, but it's one of my favorite TV shows of all time, and that is from the Files of Police Squad, which is the television precursor to the Naked Gun movies.
Okay.
It had Leslie Nielsen as Frank Drebin, and they did a short. They just didn't get renewed because it was before. It was one of those that worked perfectly at the time for movies because that was when Airplane and all those other ones were out. But as a TV show, like silly humor shows like Angie Tribeca, and those are my favorite kind of shows. Shows that are kind of silly. Brooklyn Nine-Nine gets there. It has heart, but it gets a little silly. Like I like some silly, like anything like Naked Gun, and like Angie Tribeca is like the current prime version of that show. Like the guys that made Super Trooper, they have a show called, it's a firefighter show that they do that's really just silly and kind of goofy humor. Fresno PD or something like that.
Yeah, I think I've
Or
seen
FD,
some of it.
something like that. I like shows like that. And the current show, I have one television show right now that I am recording regularly, and it's called Wild Tuna. It's on the Discovery Channel, and it's about a bunch of Bostonian, New England fishers that have a competition to catch the biggest, most valuable tuna. And it's just on their boats as they go around. And something about angry people catching fish with thick Boston, New England accents. My parents are from Boston, so there's something about just yelling at fish. I love those kind of shows when I'm in a hotel. Like I will just turn on the Discovery Channel and just watch like all of those Hunter Naked, whatever random Gold Rush, all those shows.
The glory holes.
Yes. But this is the first one I took home. Normally I save them, but I do watch Wild Tuna. So if anybody's interested in some reality TV that's obviously, like you can't make people fishing interesting for 12 days without having to edit it, but for whatever reason it gets me every time. All right. Well, we will another time talk more about current television.
Yes.
We'd like to watch, because I think I'm starting to watch more television now than I have before. Like elliptical time is good television watching time, even though I'm watching Star Wars, the animated Star Wars show is what I do most of my elliptical time. But I'm starting to watch more shows, so we'll talk about that stuff later. All right, you have any closing television words?
Watch more of it.
Do it. Watch more. I'm going to close this episode with sit, Ubu, sit. Good dog.